around 11:30 through no fault or control of ours. There are also hearings going on and other meetings in appropriations going on back and forth. Yesterday I had the Secretary of Energy. So what I'm going to try to do is get this hearing wrapped up by 11:30 because that first vote series is going to be very lengthy, may exceed an hour and the like. So if you will excuse some of my brevity, I want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to ask their questions. It's my pleasure to welcome Assistant Secretary of the Army for Civil Works, Adam Telle, and Chief of Engineers, Lieutenant General Butch Graham, to discuss the fiscal 2027 budget request for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. I am equally pleased to welcome Assistant Secretary for Water Science at the Department of the Interior, Andrea Travnicek. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Travnicek. They've got it there to discuss the fiscal 2027 budget request for the Bureau of Reclamation and Central Utah Project. General Graham, it is great to see you again, sir, in front of the Energy and Water Subcommittee. Assistant Secretary Telle and Assistant Secretary Travnicek, it's a pleasure to have you both as well before us for the first time. I look forward to working with all of you to advance our nation's water resources for the benefit of all Americans. Subcommittee has a long history of supporting the water infrastructure needs that our nation relies upon to ensure America maintains its competitive advantage in transporting goods, protecting life and property, and supplying water to our farmers and citizens. In fiscal 26, we once again demonstrated our commitment to these goals by enacting a bill that made a strong investment in our water resources. I look forward to hearing from all of you on how you will ensure that these investments made in fiscal 26 will be managed efficiently. I was especially proud of the $213 million in funding I was able to personally secure to advance the Chickamauga Lock Inland Navigation Project in my district closer to operational status. While this project has not been without its challenges, I'm encouraged that with the Corps' partnership and the leadership of the Trump administration, the project will prove to be a success and provide some lessons learned that can inform future project delivery on inland system nationwide. For fiscal 2027, the administration has provided a budget request for the Corps that totals $6.7 billion, a level even with the administration's request last year, but a reduction of over $3 billion from our fiscal 26 enacted level. Within the $6.7 billion total, $1.7 billion is once again provided for the Harbor Maintenance Trust Fund eligible activities, less than half the maximum offset provided for in law. I look forward to working in fiscal 27 to ensure adequate funding to maintain our nation's ports and harbors and their authorized dimensions. I am pleased to see the administration focusing on advancing the highest priority studies and construction projects in the Corps' primary mission areas of navigation, flood control, and ecosystem restoration that provide the most national benefits. I look forward to hearing more about the Corps' initiatives to improve transparency within its enterprise and deliver these projects on time and under budget. For the Bureau of Reclamation and Central Utah Project, fiscal 27 budget request proposes a total of $1.3 billion, a reduction of approximately 22% below the enacted level. I'm concerned that at this level, we will not be able to address the most pressing water resources needs across the West. While I do not represent a reclamation state, I understand the importance of robust investment in Western water infrastructure and the benefit provided to the entire nation by reclamation projects that supply water and power to our communities and farmers. I appreciate our witnesses for being here today to explain your budget requests and to discuss the administration's priorities for your respective agencies. I look forward to working with you and my colleagues on both sides of the dais to develop a bill that addresses our nation's most pressing water resources and development challenges. With that, I will turn to my ranking member, Ms. Kaptur, for her opening statement. Ms. Kaptur.
Thank you very much. Good morning, and thank you all for joining us, Chair Fleischman, my colleagues, and I welcome this opportunity to examine recent actions of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and the Bureau of Reclamation in your 2027 budget requests. Know fully we respect the work that you and the Corps do. We all thank you for your service to our nation, and your vital work sustains life on Earth, strengthens our economy, and ensures public safety against increasing threats of extreme weather events. Nature seems angrier each year, from the record-breaking snow drought parching the West to recent record flooding in Washington state, to the droughts followed by severe rainfall impacting our Great Lakes region and coastal battering in Texas, South Carolina, and California. You have a lot to catch up to. Truly, your agencies are essential to protecting lives and carrying out everyday life for American families, our businesses, and their ability to pay for the vital water and energy systems on which they rely. When the Corps of Engineers maintains our inland waterways, ports, and harbors, those ensure that agricultural and industrial products, from Ohio soybeans to essential building materials like American steel, reach domestic and global markets efficiently. This keeps the cost of goods down for everyone. And when the Bureau of Reclamation delivers 10 trillion gallons of water for municipal, rural, residential, and industrial uses, it ensures that communities have affordable and reliable access to life's most basic necessity that too many take for granted. This mission is under immense pressure this very month as historically record-low snowpack threatens the Colorado River Basin and pushes Lake Powell dangerously close to losing its ability to generate the hydropower that millions rely on. Our country's headed to 400 million people, and we're acting like it's about 250. That is why the President's proposed fiscal year 2027 budget and its cuts for the Corps and the Bureau are not just misguided, they are dangerous. Slashing the Corps' budget by $3.8 billion, a 36% decrease, and cutting Reclamation's budget by $358 million will erode our infrastructure and ultimately raise costs on everyday Americans and make their lives worse. Remember, the President is asking us for $1.5 trillion, and that's not even it, plus another $250 billion in defense spending for more war costs halfway around the world. We should not put American lives at risk here at home by transferring their hard-earned money abroad. He can't pay for this war by robbing every other account in the government of the United States. Furthermore, our nation cannot build resilient, comfortable ways of life for our growing population on shrinking staffs. The Corps has lost approximately 8% of its workforce through recent terminations and attrition actions, which the Corps didn't ask for, and neither did we here in Congress. And while the Bureau of Reclamation has lost an alarming 25% of its workforce, including senior staff with decades of institutional knowledge, federal officials warn that the loss of this expertise and staffing capacity jeopardizes regular inspections and repairs of Reclamation's 490 dams and 294 reservoirs. Our nation cannot gamble with public safety. We all remember the tragedy in Texas just last year when at least 135 people, many of them children, died. Safety is paramount. I must also express my deep disappointment with and disapproval of the extreme politicization and lack of transparency we are witnessing regarding our nation's water infrastructure. During the longest government shutdown in history last October, the administration announced it would pause over $11 billion in funding for essential core projects simply because these projects are located in so-called blue states and cities. Where did that ridiculous idea even come from? We're talking about people and communities. What type of heavy, ham-handed harm was exacted on the American people? No administration in U.S. history has stooped to such political tactics, and this is not entertainment. What you work with every day is life itself. We are also seeing gag orders emerge from the Department of Defense that require all congressional communication to be routed through legislative affairs at the Pentagon. What do they know? Again, this is political manipulation that impedes the timely exchange of basic factual project information with this committee and members of Congress. In the Great Lakes region, we know what's at stake. We know we've needed the Corps to modernize projects like the Soo Locks to turbocharge our economy and keep maritime shipping lanes competitive and open. We need to advance without further delay construction of the Brandon Road project to stop invasive carp from devastating the Great Lakes fishing industry, and recreational boating industries, with Lake Erie having the most to lose, given it is home to more fish and boats than all the other Great Lakes combined. Disinvestment now will inevitably lead to higher costs down the road for the American taxpayer. I urge my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to reject these short-sighted, public safety compromising budget cuts. Now is not the time to retreat. We must provide these agencies with the resources they need to lower costs for working families and safeguard our people for generations to come. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I look forward to the testimony and yield back.
And I thank the ranking member for her opening statement. Again, thank you to our witnesses for being here today. Without objection, your full written testimonies will be entered into the record. With that in mind, we would ask that you please summarize your opening statement in 5 minutes. Assistant Secretary Telle, you are now recognized for your opening statement, sir.
Thank you, Chairman Fleischman. Chairman Fleischman, Ranking Member Capter, and distinguished members of the subcommittee, thank you for the opportunity to be here today to discuss the President's FY27 budget for the Army Civil Works program. As you know, the budget was submitted to Congress earlier this month, and it laid out the President's priorities for discretionary funding with recommendations to reach balance and restore confidence in the government's fiscal posture. The President's top-line budget includes $6.663 billion for the Army Civil Works program. The Civil Works program is centered around its primary missions of commercial navigation, flood risk reduction, and aquatic ecosystem restoration. The budget focuses on opportunities to support these missions in a way that provides a high return on investment to the American public, such as by facilitating maritime commerce and addressing the most significant flood risks facing American communities. In support of these missions, with regard to project funding, the budget includes $2.06 billion for commercial navigation, notably including $133.76 billion for the completion of Montgomery Lock on the Ohio River in Pennsylvania. Additionally, the budget includes $931 million for flood and storm damage reduction, including $420 million for Prado Dam in California. The budget also includes $410 million for aquatic ecosystem restoration, including sufficient amounts for the South Florida Ecosystem Restoration Program to help support the expedited completion of the Everglades Agricultural Area Reservoir by 2029, which is 5 years ahead of schedule. The budget also focuses on increased transparency and realignment of incentives related to how funds are executed through the Civil Works program. A central feature of this year's budget is the district's salary transparency initiative, which is a key part of our building infrastructure, not paperwork agenda, unveiled earlier this year. This is a key change designed in how we account for costs that's designed to drive our districts towards project delivery. The existing account framework inadvertently incentivizes forever projects as core districts' ability to pay its employees' salaries and cover its overhead is tied to keeping projects undelivered or taking on projects that otherwise wouldn't to generate new business. This system also makes it difficult to distinguish the actual cost of personnel and overhead expenses, thereby obscuring how federal and non-federal funds are being utilized. To address this issue, the Corps of Engineers will now separate employee salaries and overhead costs from direct project costs. While this budget includes the same types of resources proposed in previous budgets, all salary and overhead costs are identified and reported in a separate account from the project's line item costs. This change is a key component of this administration's effort to promote greater transparency and accountability across the government. This new approach will deliver unprecedented transparency to decision makers within the executive branch and here within the legislative branch. It will also realign incentives to focus our enterprise on building infrastructure on time and within budget, rather than building districts through the endless production of government paperwork. Thank you all for inviting me here today. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Assistant Secretary Telle. General Graham, thank you for being here today. It's an honor to be with you, sir. I thank you for your outstanding service to our country and also to all those who serve the Army Corps and our great United States Army, sir. You are now recognized for 5 minutes for your opening statement.
Chairman Fleischman, Ranking Member Capter, and members of the subcommittee, I'm honored to testify before you today in regard to the President's fiscal year 2027 budget request for the United States Army Corps of Engineers. Through the Civil Works program, the Army Corps works with our partners to study, build, and operate water resource projects focusing on our three main mission areas of commercial navigation, coastal and upland flood storm damage reduction, and aquatic ecosystem restoration. Let me break those down. The navigation program, which consists of our coastal Great Lakes, channels, as well as the inland rivers and our key intercoastal waterways, it underpins much of the nation's economy, ensuring that commodities can move reliably and efficiently. Our flood and coastal storm damage reduction programs maintain 746 dams, over 13,000 miles of federal levees, 450 miles of shore protection. All of that provides, on average, over $200 billion per year in flood damages avoided. Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Capter, we're a great investment for the American people. The Civil Works program for 2027 is performance-based and focuses on high-performing projects and programs. The discretionary request includes $6.663 billion for the Civil Works program. As we discussed the last time I was in front of this committee, the Corps' objective each and every day is to safely deliver quality projects on schedule and within budget. To this end, our current on-schedule rate across the entire Civil Works portfolio is up to 87.9% when I checked this morning. We've gone from a low B from the last time I was here in the low 80s to a high B, and we're pleased with that progress. This performance is influenced by factors both controllable and uncontrollable. Focusing on the things we can control, the Army Corps is absolutely committed to procedural improvements in the following three areas. First, get the engineering right. The focus here is on the maturity of the design. I remain committed to my pledge that we will not request project authorization unless the design is at the 35% level. We simply have to know what it is we plan to build before we ask for authorization and funding. Second key item is to get the project management right. Here, we're focusing on crafting logical, fully resourced schedules and sticking to them, ensuring that we're delivering these important projects with a great sense of urgency, with a great sense of hustle. And finally, we've got to get the team right. We're striving to bring together the right mix of talent, either on board with the Corps or by leveraging the talents in the private sector. So by focusing on the basics of getting the engineering right, of getting the project management right, and getting the project team right, we're making our cost estimates more reliable and our project delivery more efficient. We are seeing some tangible progress from the investments Congress has made. I'll focus on our coastal channel availability. We've improved. Last year, we were at 85% of channel availability. This year, we're at 91%. Congress is investing more in us, and we're delivering more for the American people. And that means that 91% of the tonnage entering our ports is moving undisturbed through the system. That said, there's much more work to do, more improvements to make. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today, and I look forward to addressing your questions.
And I thank you, General Graham. Assistant Secretary Travnicek, you are now recognized for 5 minutes for your opening statement. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Capter, and members of the subcommittee for the opportunity to testify in support of President Trump's fiscal year 27 budget request for the Bureau of Reclamation and the Central Utah Project, and discuss the President's vision to make America safer, stronger, and more prosperous through the delivery of water and power. I'm Andrea Travnicek, Assistant Secretary for Water and Science. The Department of the Interior's Bureau of Reclamation manages and delivers water for agriculture, municipal, and industrial uses, supports flood control and recreation, and produces hydropower across the western United States. Reclamation projects and programs serve as the backbone of the West's water and power infrastructure and are a driver of economic activity across hundreds of river basins. Reclamation's activities support economic output valued at approximately $34 billion annually and sustain more than 450,000 jobs. Each year, Reclamation delivers roughly 10 trillion gallons of water, irrigates approximately 10 million acres of farmland, and generates reliable hydropower that supports regional electric grids. Reclamation's core mission is grounded in maintaining assets that provide safe, reliable, and efficient management of water resources throughout the western United States. Specifically, Reclamation's work includes the operation and maintenance of federal water and power infrastructure, the responsible management of natural resources, the application of sound science and engineering to inform operational decision-making, and the execution of congressionally authorized programs in accordance with the federal and state law. Reclamation carries out these responsibilities across 17 western states and works closely with water and power customers, tribes, and local partners to deliver authorized benefits efficiently and cost-effectively, with priority given to contractual obligations to our stakeholders as well as efforts required by law. Reclamation's FY27 budget advances the Trump administration goals of improving water access, reliability, and affordability for farmers across the western states. Moreover, the administration remains committed to ensuring reliable and affordable hydropower rates for power users. Reclamation continues to seriously engage with stakeholders along the Colorado River and other key basins, and Reclamation continues to explore how best to utilize resources in support of these goals. For FY27, Reclamation requests over $1.2 billion in gross discretionary appropriations. Of this total, $1.1 billion is requested for the Water and Related Resources account, $64 million for the Policy and Administration account, and $32 million for the California Bay Delta account. The request also includes $66.9 million for the Central Valley Project Restoration Fund. Discretionary appropriations are supplemented by non-discretionary and partner funding that supports the execution of authorized projects and programs. In addition to the request for reclamation, the FY27 budget requests $17 million for the Central Utah Project Completion Act program. The budget supports funding for continued construction of the Utah Lake Drainage Basin and Delivery System, the final component of the project. The funding supports continued construction of the Spanish Fork Pipeline and design of the Mona Pipeline. Funding is also provided for the Mitigation Commission for the purpose of continued implementation of mitigation commitments for fish, wildlife, and recreation as identified in project planning documents in Title III of CUPCA. In addition to the FY27 budget, Reclamation continues to utilize existing resources to support its water supply management and conservation activities. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act signed into law by President Trump provided $1 billion to Reclamation for construction of water storage and conveyance facilities. To date, Reclamation has allocated $889 million to support modernizing Western water infrastructure and improving storage capacity, including $540 million for California, $100 million for Utah, and $30 million for Idaho. One notable example is the $40 million specifically dedicated to planning and pre-construction activities associated with raising Shasta Dam. Moreover, funding from the One Big Beautiful Bill Act also will be used to construct a conveyance and pump storage project for the Lewiston Orchards area in northern Idaho and to replace a 110-year-old Strawberry Highline Canal in southern Utah County, Utah, with an enclosed pipeline to improve safety and water delivery efficiency. Moreover, Reclamation continues to execute balances from prior year funding to bolster conservation activities in the Colorado River, including efforts which have resulted in at least 3.4 million acre-feet of additional water in Lake Mead. Drought-related funding support near-term and medium-term actions to stabilize water supplies in drought-affected basins, include voluntary conservation agreements, water management improvements, and infrastructure investments that deliver measurable operation benefits and protect existing federal investments. Additionally, reclamation funds are being applied to infrastructure projects that address deferred maintenance, improve water delivery reliability, enhance dam safety, and strengthen system performance. Reclamation has selected hundreds of projects nationwide and is implementing them through established program authorities. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on President's FY27 budget request for the Department of the Interior's Bureau of Reclamation and CUPCA. I look forward to answering any of your questions.
Thank you, Assistant Secretary Travnicek. We now begin with questions, starting with my own, and I am mindful it's about 10:30. They say votes are going to be called around 11:30. So in the interest of brevity, I'm going to limit my question, General Graham and Assistant Secretary Telle, to Chickamauga Lock. I want to thank both of you all for your partnership with the Chickamauga Lock Replacement Project in my district. I'm extremely pleased that the Corps was able to award the final construction contract earlier this year. I thank you for that. Thanks to the $213 million I worked to include in the fiscal 26 bill for that funding. It is important to ensure, from my perspective, that there are no further delays as they take place as these contracts finish. That is my goal. It is now, once again, fully funded to get it completed. My one question, actually, too, is what is the updated timeline for Chickamauga Lock to be operational? And how is the Corps working to complete previous contracts without delaying final construction? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for the question. This is an important project related to navigation along the Tennessee River. It has many ties to national security facilities that you've also been a tremendous advocate for. This project would not have gotten as far as it has gotten today, about 85% complete without your leadership. You and I visited it together about a month ago. I think we learned a lot there. We're tracking an operational date of 2028. There have been ongoing contract discussions related to that project. I'm not going to get into those here. I'll allow General Graham to do so. This is an important project, and we believe that the challenges related to contracting will not affect the timeline.
Thank you, sir. General?
Chairman, just to add, we're certainly watching finishing Chickamauga lock closely. As the Assistant Secretary said, 2028 is our commitment to deliver that. We've got a great contractor on board now with that additional funding that we received in 2026, and so we're excited about getting this finished. We got a few bumps in the road with finishing the work from our current contractor, but we're committed to working collaboratively across both those contractors to get this project delivered.
Thank you, gentlemen. I look forward to working with you to complete this lock project. Appreciate that. With that, I'm now going to recognize the ranking member for her questions, and I want to make sure that everyone can ask the questions that they wish.
Yes,
Ms.
and Mr.
Capper.
Chairman, I'd like to suggest that we do a second hearing with the Corps if we are unable to ask our questions today. This is an extremely important part of our government, and I am offended that the leadership, not you, but recessed us for 2 weeks. And then when we come back, they co-plan hearings parallel to one another across this government, 3 different ones going on right now. I'm on all the committees, and I can't be there because I'm here. So I see what you're doing. I won't say the name of the congressman, but I'm very offended by the way, not you or anybody here, but your leadership is handling this Congress, and it's not with respect. Okay, so in terms of questions, Assistant Secretary Telle, the Sulak project I visited several times, and I visited again this year, and I was just so impressed with everyone there. It's critical to our maritime transportation system. But in September 2024, the Secretary of Army submitted to the Department of Defense a special salary rate request for Sulak's operators in response to pay reduction-driven employment losses across the Corps and the Department of Defense. 19 months later, Sulak operators continue to vacate their positions for higher-paying jobs elsewhere, risking the Corps' ability to operate the locks on a 24-hour basis and potentially delaying iron ore shipments to the Great Lakes region. When, and that goes into steel and so forth, so it's very important to us. When do you expect the department to respond to the pending request for an appropriate needed adjustment to the salary rate for Sulak operators to maintain critical operations there? And what are you doing to specifically prompt that response? And they didn't ask me to ask this question.
Ma'am, thank you for the question. And I think we share, General Graham and I share your view about the importance of Sulaks. This is what allows a lot of the ingredients for our steel industry to transit the Great Lakes through Lake Superior and into the remainder of the waterway system there. It is a project that is in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. It's a remote location, and it does require special consideration in relation to how we pay the folks that are working on the Sulaks project. So thank you for your advocacy for that. I'm happy to get back to you on the specific question about the status of the request. We want to see Sulaks completed. There was $176 million in the FY26 work plan. There's $78 million in the President's FY27 budget. This is important to the nation. It's important to the entire Upper Midwest. We all share that, and we want to see this project complete.
And as a nation at war, it's even more important. So
yes, ma'am. It's a
appreciate
strategic asset for our nation.
Thank you. I want to turn to the Ohio harbors here just for a sec. The Great Lakes Navigation System is an important waterborne transportation network, about 2,400 miles along the longest coastline in the country, actually. And one critical issue that remains for us is the beneficial use of dredge materials from our lakes. Do you share, General Graham, do you share General Spellman's goal of a 70% use of dredge material for beneficial use by 2030? And can you commit to me that you will continue to prioritize the development of dredge material management plans in Ohio that will be necessary as existing disposal facilities approach capacity?
Ranking Member Capter, absolutely. 70% beneficial reuse is our goal. I think when we checked earlier, we're at almost 40-some%. We're not going to stop here. The redoing the dredge material management plans for all those 7 harbors with the Buffalo District is ongoing. That's a great step in the right direction. And the intent from both the port operators, the state of Ohio, and the Corps of Engineers is to view that material as a resource, not as a waste product. And that is the spirit with which they're moving forward. And if I could just add one piece, going back to the Sulak, we certainly are aware of the flooding in the upper portion of Michigan and the lower upper peninsula of Michigan that's ongoing right now, particularly around Sheboygan. And it's terrible, just flash flooding. So we have been asked to provide some dam safety engineers, and they're on site. And we also have been asked for some flood fighting materials, and they're on site as well.
I haven't seen whether the water's come up to the base of the bridge, but it was about 7 inches away. It's a serious issue there, and thank you. I would suggest, and I'll write you a letter on this, that, and this will be my last in this round, if there'll be a second round, point that I want to raise. I really do. I've met with farmers. I have 8 of my 9 counties are all rural counties, and they want that dredge material. I would love for you to help me set up a meeting between the Corps and the very best farmers that exist in America, and the Farm Bureau, and our farmers who specialize in cover crops, because one of the reasons Lake Erie is sick is because all that good material washes down through the rivers into the lake. And they have shown me some astounding achievements. It's taken them 20 years. But I think we have a lot to learn cross-agency, so I would just ask if you could make a note to yourself and find me the right people. I think we can do something extraordinary for the country in our world. So thank you. Thank you for your services. Thank you so much. I yield back.
I now recognize Chairman Simpson for his questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you all for being here today. This is an important hearing. You do great work, and I appreciate and I enjoy working with all of you and appreciate the work that you do. This would not be an Army Corps of Engineering hearing if I didn't ask about the Littlewood River. I was pleased to see that you requested $12.5 million in the budget request to move this towards completion. I won't ask you for the whole thing. It could be a simple answer. We're going to get it done. That would be suffice. Is that?
Representative Simpson, we're going to get it done.
All right. That's all I need to hear. But I've been asking about that for 28 years. And I've told people that I'm not going to retire until we get that done. So you're keeping me here. And I would like to go do other things. But anyway, Assistant Secretary Travnicek, I was encouraged to see that the Bureau of Reclamation released the first round of projects to receive funding from the Bureau's section of last year's reconciliation bill. You mentioned the Lewiston orchards. I would also like to highlight, as we did in a letter from the delegation, a project to reline the stretch of the New York Canal through Boise. And while most of the reconciliation funding has been claimed at this time, by my count, we still have about $100 million left. Is there a next set of projects funded by this reconciliation money? And if so, do you have any sense of the timelines of any future announcements?
Thank you, Representative Simpson. Yeah, we were fortunate to be able to get those dollars out the door and, of course, be able to get those into Idaho. When I was here during the first Trump administration, I actually got to see the New York Canal. That was actually my first trip with Reclamation, so know how important of a project that is. So as we're looking at trying to figure out to get that extra $100 million out the door, we're definitely looking at projects that shovel-ready, trying to prioritize those. So we don't quite know the timeline yet, but we're knowing that those dollars are extremely important. So we'll keep everybody posted as we get those out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Assistant Secretary Telle, I was pleased several years ago to lead the charge on the appropriation side to get the Corps' full access to the Harbor Maintenance Trust Fund. I understand you've done quite well with that access and have greatly improved your management maintenance of the nation's seaports. Part of the reform language included getting donor and energy ports increased access to that fund. My understanding was that language was intended to apply to maintenance, dredging, and closely related projects at donor and energy ports. I have heard concerns that these dredging funds are being used for projects not related to dredging. Can you explain the process donor and energy ports used to gain access to the Harbor Maintenance Trust Fund and how your office defines applicable uses for these funds that are generated by shippers, not ports, for maintenance dredging?
Yes, sir. This is an issue that is related to the Authorization Act, the Water Resources Development Act, which is up for reauthorization this year and requires a certain percentage of Harbor Maintenance Trust Fund to be set aside for energy and donor transfer ports for activities that are not in the federal channel, closer to the shoreside infrastructure. The FY26 Appropriations Act met the authoriser's intent with regard to the set aside for those ports, And the FY26 work plan reflected that as well. I'm going to defer to General Graham on the details of the dividing line between what we consider federal and non-federal.
General, Representative Simpson, I'll have to get back to you on those exactly where the line's drawn. It's not clear in my mind right now, and I don't want to give you any bad information, so we'll get back to you and your staff.
Okay, I appreciate that. But thank you all for all you do. It's an important part of moving this country forward. And thank you.
Go back.
Thank you, Mr. Simpson. Ms. Wasserman Schultz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Telle, it's nice to meet you. And I understand today is your first opportunity to testify in front of the Appropriations Committee. So welcome. I look forward to working with you because I got a lot going on in South Florida. So I'll start by taking a step back, Mr. Secretary. The FY26 enacted amount for the South Florida ecosystem restoration construction was $461 million. The Army Corps then said you were projecting $58 million in salaries and expenses for FY26. That left $403 million in project funding, according to the FY26 work plan. Looking at your FY27 proposal, your budget request lists the project at just $295.8 million, with an additional $150 million in salaries and expenses. That combined total is still a cut from last fiscal year, and that's a threefold increase in salaries and expenses year over year. So is it correct that the SFR project is receiving a cut in project funding, but receiving an increase to $150.8 million in salaries or expenses? Yes or no?
Ma'am, thank you for the question. You've put your finger on the exact point that we're making with separation of project costs and salaries and expenses. For the first time, the administration is providing the legislative branch with transparency about how much of our project's costs are dedicated to the project and how much are dedicated to our internal salaries.
Okay.
And
if I can just interrupt you for a second, because I mean, you're acknowledging, how are you going from $50 million, $56 million in salaries and expenses from last fiscal year to $150 million in this one? I mean, is that what you're saying? Is that, I mean, where's the justification for a tripling of salaries and expenses?
Ma'am, I would say that this is step one, is to provide you on this committee and to provide the executive branch with transparency about what you're buying. And this is the exact question.
But you're not answering my question. How did we triple salaries and expenses from one fiscal year to the other?
Ma'am,
and still cut the programmatic funding.
This is step one. These are the numbers we were provided by the Jacksonville District for FY26 and FY27. They're reflected in the president's budget. The point here is to provide you with transparency so that we can ensure that we're maximizing the dollars that go to actual project costs.
You're claiming my time because you're not answering my question. I don't understand how we went from $50 million to $150 million in salaries and expenses in one fiscal year. That's never happened. And so I need an explanation for the record, if you don't know the answer now, on how that happened. And I recognize some of these decisions were handed to you, Mr. Secretary, but you have to understand this move to separate out salaries and expenses and then suddenly request that this committee triple that amount for this project with no formal justification. For Floridians focused on Everglades restoration, that looks like padding bank accounts rather than restoring sheet flow. That looks like what you're doing. You're nodding your head. I certainly hope that's not what you're doing.
I agree with you that that's what it appears to be, and I think that that's something that we ought to tackle together. We have the same goal here.
Well, why are you asking for $150 billion in salaries? Why are you tripling salaries and cutting? So you're acknowledging you're tripling this. You're proposing to triple the amount of salary we provide, and you're cutting the actual programmatic funding here.
Ma'am, this is transparency that the committee has never had access to. This is the whole point.
It's your proposal. I want to know why. Where's the justification?
This is information that was hidden from you in previous budget requests. We're providing it to you so that we can have this conversation.
It was your budget request last year also, so that makes no sense to me.
This spans administrations. It goes back decades.
You're claiming my time.
We're providing you.
We're going to have lots of other opportunities.
Unprecedented
to talk.
transparency.
You're not. You're actually making it more opaque. Under your FY27 budget request, can you tell this committee that not one single project for South Florida ecosystem restoration will be canceled, delayed, or reworked due to a lack of funding? Because you're cutting the funding in this proposal.
Ma'am, we share the goal of restoring.
Can you commit that you are not cutting, canceling, or delaying or reworking any South Florida ecosystem restoration project?
Ma'am, I'm not aware of any action in this budget that would do that.
Okay, we're being asked now to underfund this project to make room for grotesque salary increases, for cuts to actual investment, which is the first time in my memory that we'd be going in the wrong direction on the investment we're making in this restoration. I have a project, the C11 Canal in my hometown of Weston, that is being delayed, and now we're knowingly being asked to pour gas on that fire. Mr. Secretary, I'm really worried that you've got some rose-colored glasses on right now. Under the current funding levels, we already see shovel-ready projects like the C11 project in my hometown of Weston being delayed because of resource allocation issues. What's the goal of this change? Transparency, I understand, but there's a tripling. Are you saying that before the salaries and expenses were really much, much higher and it wasn't being that was not being factually represented in previous budget requests?
Ma'am, until the fiscal year 27 budget request and the fiscal year 26 budget request, the administration had never shared with Congress or even looked itself at
including your administration.
This goes back decades.
Okay.
Had never had an honest assessment of what portion of the project costs that you provide are going to district salaries and
But
expenses.
I need to understand why you're cutting program funding for Everglades restoration. That's
The
what's
fiscal year
proposed in this
2027
request.
budget request for Everglades restoration is $446 million total when you include salaries and expenses, which is the exact
But
same
the
amount.
portion to restore the Everglades is cut. It is a cut. Less money is being asked
No,
for
ma'am.
this year.
The budget request for fiscal year 26 was $446 million, and this budget includes $446
Even
million.
separating that out, the $295 million that you're asking for is less than you asked for last year. Less.
It's less than the work plan, yes, ma'am. We did not provide this information during the fiscal year 2026 request. We are providing transparency into the separation between project costs and salaries so that we can have the conversation we're having now, which I think is
Secretary,
important.
I'm out of
We
town.
agree with you.
I'm out of time, but you got a lot of explaining to do to folks in the state of Florida, both Republicans and Democrats. I yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you. Mr. Newhouse, recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate all of you being here today, joining our hearing. Assistant Secretary Travnicek, good to see you. As you know, the 2024 retreat fire devastated the Yakima Valley in Washington State, in my district, burning more than 45,000 acres in its wake and severely damaging what's known as the Yakima-Tieton Irrigation Canal. This canal, which is over 110 years old and at risk of catastrophic failure, supports over $700 million in annual crop revenue and provides residential water supply and public safety fire suppression water to various communities. So I was pleased that the Bureau, in accordance with the FY26 Energy and Water Appropriations Act, declared the wildfire damaged and landslide imperiled state of the canal as an emergency, which is required to receive certain emergency funding, as you know. The next directive of that legislation is to provide financing to the local irrigation district, which I understand is the step that BOR is currently undertaking. So in addition to the damaged canal, the Yakima Valley is experiencing what's now the fourth consecutive year of drought conditions. And so I'm truly gravely concerned about the risk of catastrophic failure and can't emphasize to you enough the importance of this financing in ensuring that water delivery to the region is not negatively impacted. I also understand that BOR had a team look at the canal over the winter, which I hope provided an idea of the construction timing and associated financing needs. So with all that said, as a background, could you provide an update on where BOR is in this process? And additionally, I know we only have a few minutes here, I would like to set up a meeting with you and your staff after this hearing to discuss how we can assist in the process, as I have to emphasize strongly that repairing this vital waterway remains one of my top priorities.
No, thank you, Representative Newhouse. Yeah, we know how serious that fire was to the infrastructure up there and in the state. Reclamation continues to want to be a strong partner with the district and with the state overall. You're exactly right. We did have a team go out in February to assess the situation. just try to see what those impacts were overall. There's been a report that's been pulled together at the end of March here. So that's where we do recognize that, yes, qualifies for that, the conditional emergency extraordinary maintenance. We were looking at the aging infrastructure dollars to be able to put towards that some of the remaining dollars that still exist. And with working through Reclamation, the Department of the Interior, we're able to get approval on that. So we'll be able to update your staff on that. We were able to find that out this week. So I do think we've got some funding that can be able to assist with this.
I look forward to that meeting. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Telle and Mr. Graham, as you probably understand, as a result of catastrophic, massive flooding along the Columbia River shoreline in the 1940s and 50s, well before our time, the Army Corps acquired land along the Columbia River in the Tri-Cities to provide flood control for the area. Since that time, local governments have leased much of this land from the Corps, as we've talked about, and they have operated a lot of it as public parks. Much has changed since the 1940s and 50s, and there's no longer a need for the Corps to continue owning most of this land. A group of local governments and tribes in Central Washington has worked together to develop a plan that supports a transfer of this land out of federal ownership while ensuring that treaty rights and cultural resources will remain protected. This is it's a result of the efforts of this group that a legislative solution has been proposed to codify this plan. And I certainly appreciate the engagement of the Walla Walla and Portland districts that you've had with this group to discuss some of the more technical elements of making this happen. But I bring this to your attention because this effort has been, as you know, years in the making, countless meetings. And it's been truly fantastic to see that these groups have come to get together to develop a solution that benefits all parties. So thanks to you, to the Corps, for your work so far on this effort. And I hope that the working group will continue to receive the strong support that will be necessary from the district at the regional and the headquarters level. If you'd care to comment on any of that, I'd appreciate it very much.
Sir, very briefly, I'll just say that these types of real estate issues are some of the most challenging issues we deal with. Quite often when the Corps of Engineers owns real estate, it's for the purpose of flooding it in extreme conditions. And so quite often, maybe a parcel straddles that line between what we intend to flood in an extreme condition and what we don't. Building infrastructure, not paperwork. Our reform agenda rolled out earlier this year really focuses on delegating, particularly recreation, our very important recreation programs to non-federal sponsors, state and local concessionaires to deliver better recreation for the public. And so to the degree that we can achieve that here while also ensuring that we're not putting people in harm's way in extreme conditions, we're committed to sorting this out. General Graham?
Yeah, Representative Newell's absolutely for the great working relationship with the tribes and the Tri-Cities. If we don't need this land, we certainly want to get it back in the hands of folks that can put it to good use. I'm pretty pleased with the working relationships that we have right now. You know, there's some environmental nuances that we're working through, particularly with the cities and the tribes. But I believe that the cooperative teamwork that you seek is taking place, and our commitment to you is to continue to advocate for that.
Yeah, appreciate that very much. I appreciate your attitude and helpfulness on this. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've gone over. I appreciate your forbearance.
Yes, sir. Mr. Levin.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. The Army Corps Civil Works Program has a long history of working collaboratively with Congress to deliver for all Americans. And for years, my office has enjoyed a great relationship with the LA District, South Pacific Division, and with headquarters. This collaboration has meant that when the San Clemente Shoreline Project encountered hurdles, we work with all levels of the Corps to adapt and complete the project. I fear this success story wouldn't be possible this year, though, because of a recent memo from the Department of Defense restricting communication between the Corps and Congress, resulting in significant bottlenecks. For example, when my team reached out to the Corps regarding emergency conditions in the Oceanside Harbor, it took the Corps 2 full weeks to respond, despite the severity of the situation. And in the months since, my staff have experienced delays in receiving information we needed for the WRDA process and the fiscal 27 appropriations process. When my office asked about project capabilities, they were told repeatedly that capabilities would be communicated in the president's budget request after congressional deadlines. Well, the budget request came out last week and it zeroed out funding for the Oceanside Harbor project. Maintaining accessibility of this harbor is essential as it serves both commercial users and military vessels entering and exiting Camp Pendleton, obviously a key military installation. The Corps' own website states that the Corps, quote, dredges this entrance channel on an annual basis, end quote. It has since come to light that this project needs $4.3 million in fiscal 27. So, Assistant Secretary Telle, can you explain to me how exactly defunding this project supports the Army Corps mission to secure our nation, energize our economy, and reduce disaster risk?
Sir, thank you for the question. And this is an important project. I think we've had some recent. I know General Kelly, the deputy commander of the Corps, recently walked this project. This is something that we are working closely on. There's been issues related to the preferences of the non-federal sponsor here, related to the use of groins or not. I think that is something that we have recently worked through. That was a key inhibitor to the ability to move ahead together. And I think we've got a new plan that gets us there. General Graham, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Sure. So we're in good shape for FY26 with the additional money that was put there. So we're going to get the harbor dredged to its maintenance depth, and we'll continue to make our best technical recommendation for 27 to maintain this important harbor, as you said.
Way to get zeroed out for fiscal 27.
Sir, we'll get back to you with that answer, but there had been ongoing discussions between the Corps and the non-federal sponsor about the design of the project. I think we've had a recent breakthrough that'll help inform resource needs going forward.
I think if it were up to you guys, I don't think it would be zeroed out. The only conclusion that I can draw from this is that OMB is calling the shots. And I think they have unilaterally decided it's not worth funding work to access a critical military base in California. That's the only conclusion I can draw. And because DOD has restricted communications with us, we were unable to identify and support funding for the project. You guys understand how the timeline works. So I'd like to remind everyone, Congress alone has the authority under Article 1 to legislate, to fund, to oversee the armed forces, including the Army Corps of Engineers. And we've got to have the necessary information about project capabilities so that Congress can do its job. And that was not the case here. And I'm sure I'm not alone. We make the funding decisions. Russ Vogt does not decide. We decide. That's what the Constitution requires. Assistant Secretary Telle, are you aware of the language in the fiscal 26 Energy and Water explanatory statement that directed your office to ensure the timely delivery of information, including project capabilities, to Congress without delays, interference, or prior clearance from DOD or OMB?
Yes, sir, I am aware of that language, and we are working to coordinate with the interagency to make sure we can get you as much information as we possibly can while being compliant with.
Respectfully, Assistant Secretary, why then is the Army Corps consistently continuing to stifle information, at least to my team, I presume others, on a consistent basis? How do you square that?
Sir, we're not stifling information. Our goal is to get you information that you can count on, that's dependable, so that the right hand and the left hand of the organization knows what's happening. We want to get you
Respectfully,
consistent.
sir, when I hear from my team that they are being stifled, I hear from you that they're not. I'm going to trust my team on this one. So I'd ask you to look into it, because that's certainly the feedback I'm getting from my team.
Yes, sir. I'll just say Chairman Fleischman has been on us about this, about getting this information. This is something that we've been working with him on a daily basis to try to get you as much information as we can. He's been a tremendous advocate for the subcommittee in this regard. I think hearing your concerns, and we hear him as well, so thank you.
I'll just conclude by saying you guys have to maintain good faith communication with us. This is not optional. It is required under the law, and we have a right as Congress to direct and timely information. And this is about the life and property that you guys are trying to protect.
Sir,
it's not acceptable.
Sir, I would just offer, anytime that you aren't getting the information you need, I'm available to you. General Graham's available to you.
That'd have been great about 6 weeks ago.
Just let us know. We're here.
Okay, we will. Yield back, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
And if I may, for the benefit of my colleague and friend, Assistant Secretary Telle has properly reflected to the committee and to you, sir, in his answer that is absolutely 100% correct. So thank you, sir. At this point in time, I'd like to recognize the distinguished chairman of the Ethics Committee, Mr. Guest from Mississippi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To our witnesses, thank you for being here today. Special thanks to you, Secretary Telle, for your history of service to our home state of Mississippi. You and I had the opportunity to visit before the hearing started about your recent trip to Mississippi, leading a delegation from the Pentagon there to the ERDIC facility located in Vicksburg. And just want to ask if you would take a minute to talk a little bit about the ERDIC facility. I know that's one of 4 across the country, about the important work that they do, and then how we as Congress can help promote what I would say would be a hidden gem within your agency. So could you just talk about ERDIC for just a couple minutes? And again, I know that wasn't in your testimony, but it is something important to our state and something that I really wanted to highlight because I think that they're doing phenomenal work there at all the ERDIC facilities across the country.
Yes, sir, Congressman. Yes, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to talk about this. The Engineer Research and Development Center, which is, of course, the Corps of Engineers research arm, is headquartered in Vicksburg, Mississippi. It has labs throughout the nation that help contribute in every aspect of our work. General Graham wears multiple hats as the chief of the Corps of Engineers on the civil works side that deals with America's water infrastructure, and on the military program side that really deals with our military infrastructure and quite often our warfighting mission, the Corps of Engineers' contributions to the warfighting mission. All that work goes together, even though the ERDIC facility was really founded as a civil works R&D facility that was really built around preventing floods like the tragic flood of 1927. The expertise that was developed there in terms of soil composition, what types of concretes are best suited for flood risk management infrastructure, that wound up translating over to the military program side of the house. And that expertise really wound up blossoming there, this understanding of how soils behave when they're confronted with water, how concretes behave when they're when projectiles hit them. It really became something that the entire Army uses now to do the world-class R&D on these subjects. And earlier this week, on Tuesday, I was delighted to have the Assistant Secretary of the Army for Acquisitions, Logistics, and Technology, as well as the Assistant Secretary of the Army for Installations, Energy, and the Environment, join me down at ERDIC to understand how the Civil Works mission, how our MILCON programs, and how our warfighting programs all intermingle there at ERDIC. It's something that we need to do a better job of explaining. It's something that we need to make sure that we're properly resourcing. ERDIC is a world-class research facility in a proud place. Vicksburg, it's rumored, has the highest per capita PhDs of any community in America. So you got a lot to be proud of there, sir.
Well, look, thank you. And look, please let us know what we can do to help the Army Corps and make that facility. Again, you talk about it being a first-class facility, but what we can do to promote the work that they're doing and incorporate that across the government structure. I really believe, I've been there, I've visited, I've seen firsthand the incredible work that they do, and I want to continue to be a champion for the ERDIC facilities across the country. Last question, very briefly, I want to talk a little bit about the lock and dam infrastructure, particularly along the Mississippi River, the Tongue-Big Waterway. We have seen that many of those structures have either met or in some cases exceeded and surpassed their life expectancy, and kind of want to talk and see if y'all can give me a little information about the Corps' plan to address the lock and dam system along these waterways, and then what we can do to maintain the system's integrity. Because, look, I understand and know how important that is to commerce for us to be able to move goods up and down the river, how important that those lock and dam structures play. And again, we did a great job building those in some cases almost a century ago, but they are becoming aging over time, and really need to make sure that we are focusing on not only maintaining but rebuilding that infrastructure. So I know I've got about 30 seconds, so turn it over to anyone that would like to address that.
I'll let General Graham discuss some of the specifics, but I'll just say this. America's inland waterway system, our inland waterway navigation system, is the envy of the world. No other nation has an inland waterway system, which is the most efficient form of transportation. It opens up our entire country to the global economy. you think about the upper Midwest, you think about areas in your state and in the Tennessee Valley. And the Tennessee Tombigbee Waterway, I'll just say, is a critical connector between the Tennessee River, which is, which feeds into the Ohio River and then down the Mississippi. It allows the Tennessee River to have access straight down into the Tombigbee River and ultimately through Mobile Bay in Alabama. And so this redundancy that we have in this north-south route is what the TENTOM provides for the nation. It ensures that if the Mississippi River is down for some reason, if it's a low water in the Mississippi River, we have an alternate route. And I'll let General Graham talk any specifics.
And I'll go fast. Representative Gift, you're absolutely right. The failures we had at Holt and Demopolis are absolutely unacceptable. We are not providing right now a reliable transportation network to this key and booming part of the country. So this all starts with identifying what's the state of the current organization or this current infrastructure, and we've got a robust asset management program that does that. And that asset management program is all underpinned by great research and development. Last time I was down at Holt, we were putting galvanic protection on the lock gates, and we are one of the world's leaders on being able to do that for steel structures that are down in concrete. But we do recognize that we've got to provide to this subcommittee accurate assessments of the costs to maintain this vital part of America's infrastructure. And that's our commitment to you, sir.
Thank you, and sorry for running over, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Thank you, sir. At this time, I'd like to recognize the distinguished vice chair of this subcommittee from Texas, Mr. Cloud.
Thank you, Chairman. Appreciate you having this hearing, and thank you, witnesses, for being here. Really do appreciate the difference we're seeing with this administration compared to what we've seen in the past. A real proactive approach based on getting stuff done. I recall times in the past where it was very difficult to get things done. It's a big difference when you're working with an administration that's doing things right, trying to get to yes, versus an administration that's looking for every reason to get to no. And specifically, Secretary, your approach on let's get projects done, not just exist to create paperwork and to kind of spin the plate of procedural activity, and it's make a big difference. It's extremely important for our country, and especially, and I've said this before, when we think about the Army Corps in the past, us having a very proactive approach that we're in a race against China on infrastructure and building capabilities. And so I want to thank you for that. When I talk to people all over the country, they can see the difference, and it's going to put us in a strong position going forward. Wanted to talk about a couple issues that are relevant in my district, but also national priorities. One is the Matagorda Ship Channel. I know you're very well aware of it. The previous administration unprecedentedly rescinded the record of decision, first time for a congressionally approved project that had ever been done in history, really to kind of put this project back at zero. You've done a lot of work in kind of playing catch up for the previous administration. Want to thank you all for that. Want to know what else is left for us to be done in Congress, how important that this get into WRDA 2026. Anything else we can do from a congressional standpoint, even, I know one of the challenges is even the availability of dredges, for example, which we can throw more money, but that doesn't mean there's more dredges necessarily unless we work on that issue. Anything we could be doing, kind of in the how can we help you help us category?
Sir, you're absolutely correct, and I was very pleased to visit Matagorda a few months ago. I mean, if you just think for a minute about what it would mean to our country if we could have a port that currently on the Gulf of America in Texas that currently is not performing up to its capability, and we could add an asset to our economy, to our ability to export petroleum products. I mean, this is a key opportunity, and this is one of the most difficult areas to navigate along the entire Gulf of America. And your advocacy for the Matagorda Ship Channel is well placed, and we totally agree. The FY26 work plan included significant funding for this project. You and I are in very close touch about what else may be needed, and in close touch with your constituents as well. And so we really look forward to working through this as we get into the design phase here. General Graham, anything to add on Matagorda?
Our commitment to you, Representative Cloud, is that we're going to get the validation report and the Packer update in to WRDA 26. Right now, our timeline is to finish no later than 31 July, and our commitment to you is to make that.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Y'all been really great to work with on this. And again, thank you. I wanted to touch on one thing with you. You could probably guess what it is. In the region, we're in severe droughts in the Gulf Coast region, Corpus Christi specifically. We've been working on desalination. We've been able in legislation to begin the stand up of a water technology center of excellence for the Gulf of America to really bring a focus to what needs to be done along the coast for desalination, for best use of water technology and the like. Y'all have been very helpful again in what we need to do to bring a solution to this. The president was down recently, talked about, hey, we need to get this done. Wanted to ask you, I know one specific request is the city is working and preparing for application to the Smart Water Program and our Water Smart program. And as of yesterday, our understanding is that they've submitted everything they need. I was wondering if you could speak to maybe the timeline and decision on that, anything else we need to be doing to make sure that becomes a priority. I mean, you know how important it is to all the industry there, supplier of jet fuel for the country, strategic from a national security standpoint and the like, but we're running out of water, so.
No, thank you for the question, Representative Cloud. Yeah, we know that we're seeing drought across the West, and of course, as it's impacting Texas. So desal, yeah, we're going to have to all be leaning in, trying to make sure that we're using that tool in the toolbox and trying to figure out where those opportunities are. So you're exactly right. We've been tracking really closely the feasibility study. So I know that there's been multiple conversations with Reclamation just to make sure that you've got all the pieces in there. So I've been tracking very closely as well. Also, yes, there's going to be a notice of funding opportunity. We're working through that, where there'll be $120 million that will be available for that application process. I know that there was some discussion last time too, where I think there was a cap on it. So we're also looking for opportunities to possibly remove that cap. So don't know the exact timing as it relates to if there's anything else with your feasibility study, but please know I'm tracking it very closely to make sure if there's any issues, I'll make sure to follow up.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Ms. Malloy, the distinguished chair of the Western Caucus, is recognized for questions.
Thank you. Assistant Secretary Travnicek, I'm going to start off on a really positive note. I want to say thank you. The Central Utah project is really important to Utah, and the announcement of funding to enclose the Strawberry Highline Canal is going to be good for water conservation, but it's also going to save failures of that canal and houses that are below it in the south part of Utah County. So thank you for that. I do have a question about, does the department anticipate a second round of 50501 awards this year?
So thank you for the question, Representative Malloy. So we're working through that as well. So we're looking at those opportunities, are those available funds? So that's something that I can follow up on with you just to see what that time frame might look like. Okay,
that'd be great. I was going to request a follow-up meeting at the end of my questions anyway. So
all right, perfect.
I'll cross that off my list. The Great Salt Lake, the state, it's spending a lot of resources on that. It's another thing that's really important in Utah, besides being a large part of our identity. It's also a big part of the ecosystem, and the water levels are declining. We were really happy to see the president talking on social media about making the Great Salt Lake great again and including it in the presidential budget. And I want to ask if you will work with us and find ways to make sure that we're getting the most out of this opportunity, where it's a high priority for the administration, it's a high priority for our governor and our state legislature. We need to get something done there. I just would love to work with you moving forward on making sure we're doing the right things that get us long-term results on the lake and not just a short burst of activity that makes everybody feel better.
No, exactly. You're right. It's definitely a high priority for the administration, also a very high priority for the Department of the Interior. So we know how important that lake is to the state, also to the region and to the country. So we are going to be actively engaged, not only working with our bureaus internally, but also working with the other departments and closely with the state and the other partners as well. So we are all in to try to figure out how to assist in any way.
All right. We will be following up on that. Thank you. That was easy.
Thank you.
Assistant Secretary Telle, I have some questions from constituents of mine about WOTUS, Waters of the United States. After the Supreme Court's Sackett decision, the federal government doesn't have jurisdiction over a lot of areas that used to have jurisdiction over. But now the jurisdiction determinations are sometimes slowing down projects. Could you just speak to how often the Corps requires an entity to obtain an approved jurisdictional determination or a letter of non-jurisdiction before proceeding, rather than allowing a preliminary jurisdiction determination? So an AJD instead of a PJD, and has that changed since Sackett?
Ma'am, thank you for raising this important issue. The Sackett decision clarified in a way that has never happened since the Clean Water Act of 1972 was enacted what the law means as it relates to our role in permitting activity within waters of the United States. As a result of that decision in March of last year, we issued guidance to our districts about how to adhere to Sackett. That's in place now. We're in the process working with our partners at the Environmental Protection Agency and developing a final rule that is adherent to the Sackett decision. As you keenly point out, jurisdictional determinations are quite often the first step. Am I in a water of the United States where I need a permit, or am I not? And this budget and the Building Infrastructure Not Paperwork agenda is going to provide tools that will make that process much faster. We have inconsistency across our 39 Civil Works district about how we apply jurisdictional determinations related to waters of the United States. We want to make that consistent. Whatever district you're in, you're going to get an answer that is consistently adherent to the law of the land and in accordance with the Sackett decision. And so I would just say in the budget before you is our resources to speed those determinations so that we can get down to letting Americans carry out the economic activity and the personal activity that they would like to carry out while complying with the Clean Water Act of 1972.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm almost out of time. I will just say I get a lot of sort of general complaints about how slow the Corps is to respond. If you'll work with us on addressing that, making sure that people feel like they're being responded to in a timely manner, I would be happy to help you solve that problem. And thank you all for being here. I appreciate your testimony.
Ma'am, absolutely. Thank you. It's critical that we get folks answers as quickly as we can.
Thanks. And I yield.
Thank you. Mr. Mervin.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for being here today, Assistant Secretary and individuals from the Army Corps. Appreciate it. The Army Corps has a long history of delivering water infrastructure development projects critical to navigation, resource management, and public health. From maintaining our commercial recreational resources and ensuring residents have clean drinking water, the Army Corps of the Chicago District has been an unparalleled federal partner in the effort to facilitate economic development in Northwest Indiana, which sits at the epicenter of vital networks and the Great Lakes. Ensuring that these civil work projects are well funded is not just a local matter. Indiana Harbor and Burns Waterway Harbor service a majority industrial manufacturing hub and the largest oil refinery in the Midwest, and the nation's largest concentration of steel production. Furthermore, these harbors are the keystones of the Corps' Great Lakes navigation mission. In October, the administration issued a directive that limited communications between the local corps, districts, and congressional offices, and therefore limited my office's ability to work closely with our Corps district to understand the specific budgetary needs in the harbors. So my question is simple. Can you assure me that there are adequate resources provided for operating in the maintenance and salaries and overhead to ensure that the Corps is fulfilling its navigational mission in the Great Lakes?
Congressman, sir, absolutely. The President's budget adequately funds those operation and maintenance activities